going to show you how to install a Polaris 280. So inside the box comes with the new unit, comes with the bag, comes with all the hoses you're going to need, and the quick disconnect on the side and the backup valve. And now the Polaris 280 is a Polaris that I recommend. It's the original design that they used about 30 something years ago. It looks almost essentially the same as the old unit that's over 20 years old.
I think this one was for 100 years ago.
Yeah, maybe. It looks like that, huh?
Yeah.
At least 100?
Yeah.
The difference is that on the old one you have to push the tabs in to get the bag off. The new one, everything is actually set inside the plastic, so when you clip the bag in, you have to twist it to kind of get it off. So it's a little bit different. Maybe it'll make it last a little longer that way. But other than the design on how the bag clips in, everything essentially is the same. Okay, to install the Polaris 280 at your pool, you're going to need a separate booster pump. You may have a cleaner already with the booster pump. You may have an old Polaris, a Hayward Phantom cleaner, or a Pentair Electro Legend cleaner, and that booster pump will work fine. It's a 3/4 horsepower pump. That's what the Polaris works off of. So it needs its own dedicated booster pump and dedicated booster line. You want to take the threaded part off, quick disconnect here, and it comes standard with the blue restrictor on the back of it. The thing about the Polaris connection is that if you already have one in there, you can just hook up your Polaris to an existing one. Another good thing about the Polaris also, it hooks into the same connector that the Hayward Phantom uses and the Pentair Legend cleaner. And the Polaris 280 has a debris screen separate from the quick disconnect. In order for the Polaris to work properly, you want to cut the lead hose. You want to get the depth of your pool. And we're going to adjust the lead hose to the depth of the pool here. So just get your pool pole and stick it in the deep end, and we'll get a measurement. You need a ruler, a Sharpie, and a razor blade for the install process. I marked on the pole the depth of the pool. I'm going to go ahead and measure with the ruler. So this is a leader hose. Here's actually marked leader hose for you. So I went ahead and laid it out with the ruler here, measuring tape. So I'll go ahead and mark it with a Sharpie. I'm going to cut right here. Use a sharp razor blade or a sharp pair of scissors, and you want to cut the hose all the way through as straight as possible. You can see that one's pretty good. Now you want to unscrew the portion that you cut and get it off the part here. Go ahead and take the mender nut off, and it should pull right off. And we'll take the part that we cut and we're going to jam it onto the swivel here. And it should be pretty easy to get on. Sometimes it's tight when you first have a new hose. We should be able to slide it over here. You want to push it on as far as possible at this point. And that's how we adjust the lead hose. We get the depth of the pool, which is 8 feet. We cut off the portion that is in excess. If your pool is deeper than the length of the hose, you don't want to cut any of the hose off. And once you've adjusted the length of the lead hose, you want to make sure that one float is behind the backup valve. And then the other float here, we're going to slide the other float back till it's right next to the mender nut between the next hose section. So again, it's going to be right there at that section, and then your other float is going to be right there at the backup valve. Okay, next we're going to take the Polaris hose and we're going to stretch it across the pool, and we're going to make an adjustment in the length of it. And this particular Polaris is almost the actual perfect length for this particular pool. So I don't need to actually make any cuts on the hose, but I'll show you what you have to do if you're going to make some cuts. If you need to make cuts on the Polaris hose to adjust it. I'll go ahead and use this old Polaris as an example. Let's say when you stretch the hose across the pool, it actually was out by about 4 feet on the deck. In that case, you would just take 2 feet from each of the remaining sections behind the lead hose. This section right behind the lead hose here, and take 2 feet off. You would cut 2 feet off this hose. You would take 2 feet off the one that goes into the wall. So I would take 2 feet off this hose, and I would reattach them with the mender nut. And I would also move the floats so they're evenly spaced on the remaining hose. And it's important to have the proper hose length for your Polaris. It may get tangled up or may not get the full coverage of the pool if the hose is too long or too short. What you want to do is turn on the booster pump to clear the line. That'll clear out anything in the line there. Okay, so we would just hook in the connector with the booster pump off, and it snaps right in there. You should see the mender nut on the feed hose when you get the Polaris. You want to slide it over the stem right here. You made the adjustment on the lead hose. You want to jam it onto the stem here. Should go on pretty easy. It's a newer hose. And you want to tighten the mender nut really tight, that way it doesn't come off in the pool. And this is the adjustment for the tail sweep. You don't want it going too fast. You might need an Allen wrench to turn it, especially if it's a newer unit. And by turning it down, you'll turn the tail sweep down also, so it won't shoot water out of the pool. And the Polaris pump needs to be running when the pool pump is running also. Can't work without both of them running at the same time. You want to adjust your pool timer so that you'll have time to run the Polaris pump at the same time. And once you adjust the proper length of your Polaris hose, the Polaris will clean the pool really good. And depending on the pressure you have, the Polaris should go up the walls. In some cases, it'll go up halfway or maybe more, depending on the angle of the wall. And again, the Polaris quickly disconnects and connects very simply by turning quick disconnect with the booster pump off. So what you can do is to check the RPMs. You can mark one of the wheels here. Make sure it's not in backup mode, and we'll time it. And time it for 1 minute, see how many times it goes around. You can use the stem pipe right here as your guide. Every time it passes that, you can count to 1. And just be careful as you're doing this so you don't get squirted by the tail. Again, you can use that stem pipe right there as your marker and just count it as it goes around. And if you're getting less than 28 RPMs, you want to take the blue restrictor off of this and insert the unit without this in there. It just pops right out. So try it like that, see if you get more RPMs. And if you're getting more than 32 RPMs in your Polaris, what you want to do is replace the blue disc with the red disc that comes with the unit with the owner's manual. You also want to release some pressure by opening this up. You never want to open this up without a restrictor jet in there. So this will release some pressure, and this should lower the RPMs for the Polaris down to the acceptable level. If you know you have a very large pool that you're going to need extra hose on, you definitely don't want to cut the lead hose at all. Your pool is probably over 10 feet deep anyway. And you can add another hose. You're going to need 2 nuts and 1 swivel to add 1 more connection to your Polaris. And you'll take equal portions from each new section to get the right hose length for your Polaris. 280 is made to get many years of use out of it. You just change the parts as it starts to wear down.